Hello, good evening once again. Good evening for those of us that will be listening to this in the evening or whatever time you're listening to it. Good day. So, welcome to Yadosh, a place where we celebrate the wonders of God. As promised, we'll be talking about William Branham. So, a topic about William Branham, it's a very controversial topic. It's a very controversial topic filled with a lot of things. One thing I've come to discover with God is that every person God uniquely or decide to uniquely use in strange manner and expose to the world would always have critics to come with it. Would always have critics within him or within her. So that's we're talking about Catherine Kuma, William Branham, and a few to mention. So for William Branham, the truth is, while researching, it was actually an hard research for me. And while researching, so I'm aware of William Branham. I've read about him, studied about him. So, but for Yadosh, I had to do further research. So while researching, I found out some very dark things. And the truth is, in as much as we would love to share everything about it, I am not a reporter. I'm not a journalist, and Yadosh is not a platform where we discuss men or we talk about men act. We are celebrating God wonders in the lives of these people, regardless of the opposite sides or the multifaceted parts of a man. We look at the good things and we celebrate the wonders of God upon their lives. So for William Branham was, as I say, the healing prophet. He was a very key figure in what we know as the second wave of Pentecostalism or the charismatic movement that came also with the later rain movement. So, you see, one thing while studying William Branham I noticed was, I will say this with all emphasis, and all sincerity, there is no self-made man. Every person you hear in history is connected one way or the other to another person. There is always a link. God does not start something new with you and just you alone. He links you with other people. You experience the touch of other people. You work with other people. So for William Branham, researching through him, I found out it was linked with Alexander Dowie, Charles Parham, linked with Kenneth Hagin. I'm saying he met with these people: Kenneth Hagin, Oral Roberts, Gordon Lindsay, F.F. Bosworth, and a lot of others. So there were these links that connected them together, learning, as a podcast I was listening to said that trying to be able to trace or pinpoint each and every of these ones and who they are, their roots, spiritual and everything, it's a very, very impossible, it's a very, very hard task, or I would say impossible task, because how we think, we humans, we usually think in a linear form, or we believe we think linearly, but that's not how we think, and that's not how things operate. That's not how the perception of the world is. Nothing is actually linear. So you can say, oh, William Branham to this. No, it didn't work like that. McPherson played a role. William Branham, Alexander Dowie was there. You have Gordon Lindsay. You have Charles Parham. You have so many links that links together that form one man. And then when we talk about our modern, our current time, our current dispensation, the example I would give is David Oyedepo. So you'd think there will be so many links, but when I was researching, you'll find out that David Oyedepo, Chris Oyakilome, David Oyedepo, Chris Oyakilome, Elton, John G. Lake, which John G. Lake was also in relation or in time with William Branham, and John G. Lake was also connected to Archbishop Benson Dausa, and then you see Benson Dausa at that time was connected to, we have Chris Oyakilome, David Oyedepo, then you still have Adebo, you have Babalola, Elton. There were so many links. So linking or trying to, I know in our mind we try to be linear. This is my spiritual father, this is the person I root for, or I'm rooting in, or rooting, maybe when I mean root, not support or vote, but this is the person I carry his heritage. It isn't like that. We are all of one body, and you might dispute, or we might say, oh, we are not of this one, but when you look at it, they are all connected. They are all connected to the same spiritual root, which is of Jesus Christ, most especially. And you see the traces in every other people. You see the traces in everyone learning from each other. They were connected to each other and everything. Another example is we have the Apostle Joshua Selman, we have Apostle Arome Osai. They are all connected. They are close friends with Pojo Oyemade. So there are links. Pojo Oyemade, Bishop David Oyedepo. I can continue to give links upon links. We have Maurice Cerullo, we have David Ibiome, which is connected to I've forgotten his name. We have Bill Winston. So there's all this connection. So for one man, or for us in our time and our season, our generation, to come and say, I walk with the Spirit, I am the Spirit, or I don't know what we'll call it. It's clear fallacy. God connects men together. It might be something we deny, it might be something we are pained about, it might be something too hard to accept, but the people that currently shape our world, shape our perception, and shape our perception, especially in religion, you find out that they are all connected together. And another, I wanted to use a foul, but another man of low intelligence or low understanding would say, oh, these people are connecting their friends, and it's impossible. If you try to join them, they would not accept you. No, not necessarily anyone accepted them. They worked together, they grew together, they formed link with the necessary people. So for you to authoritatively come out without nothing and say you want to be, it's just poor thinking. You have to get connected to people. You have to serve people. You have to learn from people. You have to give to people. You have to network, because God still uses men on earth. God works in men. There is no self-made man. You are all to be connected through a root. Whatsoever God is going to do in our generation, whatever you think God is going to do in your life, is going to connect you with men. From point to point in your life, you are going to sit down under the teachings of men. You are going to experience the touch of men. Forget the segregation, the linear segregation, the Pentecostalism, you have the Orthodox and every other thing that you have. Forget all those barriers we have put in our mind. God, when He's working with man, grooms you across different men and different souls. So that's the case of William Branham. So you have to understand that William Branham, yes, he claimed to be the prophet in the coming of the Elijah. So he came to be like the Elijah. But we have to understand that William Branham was a Christian minister and a faith healer. Yeah, that is during the World War II movement. So what he did is he came to be there. He prophesied himself or he called himself the Elijah that is bringing the second coming of the Lord. So the second coming of the Lord. So that's basically some of who is, but William Branham was a prophet, and a prophet. When I mean, sometimes we have prophet and we are shocked, but William Branham had this unique gift. He could come into a room, know what you ate, know what you ate, know the time you slept, know literally everything about you. And then, but that was not the key thing, this was his working or the gift that was there. But one thing that I would say draw crowd of everything was the signs and wonders God performed through him. So it wasn't just about, oh, this is what you're doing, this is what this is you. I know you. No. There were many people that were ill during his time. So as I was saying, William Branham had a very connected network of people that influenced or shaped him. So we have the sanctification that was brought by John Wesley. We brought about the sanctification and every other thing. And then we have what we call the holiness, sanctification and holiness, the holiness movement. We have what we call the baptism of the Holy Ghost, and we have what we call the which is later in the confession and faith movement. So William Branham was shaped by all this. By all history, he was shaped there. William Branham was a Baptist pastor, moved into Pentecostalism. Was not necessarily in Zion City. Zion City was a city Alexander Dowie formed and everything. So a lot more will maybe in another chapter or another episode we'll talk more about Alexander Dowie and the Zion City. So he was not necessarily connected to Alexander, but the people he worked with were well connected with Alexander Dowie. So his campaign manager, or which we can say is VP, Gordon Lindsay, grew up. His mother grew up in Zion City. They were well connected to Zion City, and then Gordon Lindsay came to him. So we have William Branham. William Branham was somehow connected to Alexander Dowie. We talked about Charles Parham. So after Alexander Dowie, which they made a great move, we have Charles Parham, and Charles Parham to William Branham. So we'll talk about the lineage and everything. It's not a straight lineage, but that's kind of the ideology. We have people that shaped Christianity a lot, and for some reason history plays a role in, I would say, in reducing. I don't necessarily want to use the word reducing, but permitting to in reducing the influence of the black man in Christianity or in general in history. So we have in history, you'll see John Alexander Dowie, then you see Charles Parham, then you see Williams Branham. But then you'll know that from our last one, we had William Seymour that played a role. So let's just go with that. So William Branham had interaction with Charles Parham. William Branham had interaction with Gordon Lindsay, which grew up in Alexander Dowie. And then from there, he moved on to what we call Army McPherson Church. And Army McPherson Church, Army McPherson is one of I don't know how to turn this, but she worked with God so much, and the display of the Holy Spirit was so unique. So from Army McPherson lineage, we have Maria Woodward Ella, which was the first person that came in that strong act. Then we had Army McPherson. From Army McPherson, we had Catherine Kuhlman, and then we have what they call the first male, so which is Benny Hinn that came in there. So as I was saying, Army McPherson, William Branham worked or learned from Army McPherson Church, which is the Angelus Temple. That was his Bible school. That was where he went to Bible school. Him and what do we call this person? Him and Gordon Lindsay. They went there. William Branham was ordained a minister. In that. William Branham was ordained a minister right there in the Angelus Temple. The Angelus Temple were teaching them a lot of things, and it's what shaped the theology and every other thing. That is the Army McPherson, the work with the Spirit and the display of the Spirit. And then, so for William Branham, he grew up with this whole thing, and when during his time and his start of ministry, we see a great whole thing that William Branham done. Some claim that if so one thing we know, I would add this: Branham had a very short life. Died at a very early age. He died at December 24th, 1965, and he came to this world, or he was born April 6, 1909. So between April 6, 1909 and 1965, we have about 50 something years, or less than 50 something years. So he died at a very early age. And one thing of his death was shocking. So, but people say that if William Branham had stayed alive, he would have been known as one of the tele-evangelists he loved. So we have to understand, William Branham was an evangelist. He didn't really have a church, he didn't open a church, so he was an evangelist, and that was his main ministry. An evangelist, teaching the world, saving many souls and every other thing. So the key figure of William Branham, the key thing of William Branham, was how did he get saved, or what brought it. So I'll just try and give a brief history or details of what William Branham life looked like. So you have to understand that he was born in Kentucky, and his early life was marked with supernatural events. I think William Branham's early life was so supernatural. According to history, when they gave birth to him, he was born in a manger, actually. So in a farmer's shed, not a manger as they called it, but in a farmer's shed, which is also interpreted as a manger. So after he was born, a light struck from heaven, and in the Kentucky hills, you see the light shine, and there was a wonder, and God spoke to his mother that this is a man. I can't really remember the exact word, but in words that he's a great man and he's going to redeem or bring more people to me. So as always, when God gives that prophecy, it doesn't start out like that. The children are not always like that, and they don't look like that. Branham wasn't actually like that. While growing up, yes, his life was marked with strange events, but from a perspective of the natural side, it wasn't like that. There was poverty, there was hardship, there were situational challenges and things that shaped him. You see, all these challenges, they shape us for the greater good, taught him humility and other things. So there were challenges that shaped him, things that affected him and everything. But then up until a certain point while he was in the hospital, I can't really remember his exact age, but while he was in the hospital, that was when he got his first, should I say, heavenly vision or touch that ensured, or that told him or gave him clearly what his assignment was. His assignment to preach the gospel to every people. So while in the hospital, the supernatural event happened. As I said, we are trying much as not to be historians in our conversation. We can give history in the email newsletter, in the write-up, but then in our conversation, we are trying much to push us, to drive us to understand that God is still working with people, and God works in special ways. So it is more about the wonders of God than the people itself. So that's why I'm not trying to glorify or looking for a way not to glorify or not to demystify or critique the person. So I wouldn't be giving much details in many things, but just speaking as I'm led, I believe. So as I was saying, so while in the hospital, he was sick and had a serious illness that could come to death. Like, they thought he would die, and at that point he thought he would die. Even when the wind started blowing and the whole supernatural encounter, he thought, oh, God is calling me home, I'm about to die. And as that incident, or as it was just occurring, God then spoke to him, and from those words, he decided that he is going to give his life to Christ. So I'll just give out exactly exactly the word. The word came, never drink or smoke. I called you and you would not go. I called you and you would not go. I called you and you would not go. And from there he broke down and he said, Lord, if that is you, let me go back again to earth, and I will preach your gospel from the housetop and street corner. I will tell everyone about it. So those were the exact words, and from that moment his life turned around. That was when he first started preaching the gospel. But before or within that period, he didn't really started performing the miracle, the healing miracle, or what we know him to be the healing revivalist, or the healing revivalist prophet. He didn't start up until we have three critical points in his life. We have the 1947 and the 1947 and the 1963. So the 1947 was marked with the special healing grace that took over him, and then he started healing campaign, and that was when we can say he went big time on God, and supernatural events happened during his meeting. They say you see a glow of light shine around him. You see him soaked in the presence of God. William Branham was that man that you see him most times you see him with a Bible is reading. William Branham was just soaked with the presence of God. Supernatural things happened during his meetings. People would call on him for prayers. He would pray for them, and things would just happen. So according to what they say is that these meetings were so powerful that you would have, like, ushers would just lay mats or roll things on the ground or put things on the ground, and while they are praying for people and everything, you just see things surprisingly going away and then thrown away. So, like, the miracles was just there. The presence of God was there. God used him mightily, healed a lot of people, and the key distinction. So, as I said, the key distinction from him with other evangelists or other healing revivalists was the prophetic gift that was over his life. For him to be able to see your problem, tell you your situation, tell you details about you, and give you a solution. That was just the unique thing about him. That was the unique thing about William Branham. So within his life, God used him mightily, used him in political affairs, in national affairs, and one thing that we know is that when God begins to use a man, all these people of influence, they get one way or the other connected even to the bad guys. Not necessarily participating in the bad guys, but then just as if you have an heart for God, if you are reaching out to souls and you are very much interested, when you see these so-called politicians or these so-called people with evil agendas, though you don't know how deep their agendas is, but because of that mandate, these are people you can reach out to. So one way or the other, you connect yourself with them, trying to preach the gospel with him. So he was connected with a whole lot of people like that, people that believed in the white supremacy, that is, the white is the only human race, the British Israel, and Malachi 4 prophecy, that is the city of the Lord exalted upon I, and then everything. So you had people he was connected to in that stuff. So those kind of people also painted a bad image on him. So as everyone, he also had his negative parts. He also had things that critic pointed, and now some use it as a stain on him. And even during this time, there were things that people called out. So those kind of things. So one was he had connection with the Ku Klux Klan. He had connection with people. Ku Klux Klan was a clan that believed just in the white being the supreme race, being the race, and he had connection with them. There were issues with those people and different other stuff. So let's continue his listening. So let's continue his visit, his campaign. So when he started his healing campaign, he worked with Gordon Lindsay. Actually, he worked with Gordon Lindsay, and they worked together. And a lot of things went on. And then we have a lot of things going on Lindsay. So this was how the meeting will hold. The meeting would hold from morning till night, still like a revival setting, but then in the morning till afternoon session you have either Gordon Lindsay or F.F. Bosworth preaching. He preached, and then what William Branham would come with, William Branham would just come in and start praying for people, and he could pray from 6 p.m. to 3 a.m. He was just praying for people. So that was basically a few preaching, and then he begin the healing. and begin the praying. So that was key work. So William Branham also worked with people like Kenneth Hagin, worked with people like Oral Roberts, worked with people like T.L. Osborn. Kenneth Hagin, though history hasn't totally confirmed it, but there are parts that claim that Kenneth Hagin attended most of his meeting or preached most of his meeting, and there are parts that claim that Kenneth Hagin necessarily didn't preach, but there were connections with them. Kenneth Hagin owned Rema Bible School, William Branham owned Rema Voice of Healing. So those key relationship and every other thing. So basically his impact on Christianity, or his impact on the second wave of Pentecostalism, or the modern Pentecostalism, is so much great. So sometimes I know for many of us that are churchgoers and not a study of history, you wouldn't have heard of William Branham. You might have heard of Kenneth Hagin, T.L. Osborn, you might have heard of Billy Graham, you might have a lot of figure, but you wouldn't have heard of William Branham, and which existed in that time. And why that was so is because of one key phrase: better is the end of a thing than the beginning thereof. So he did a whole lot of things and created a lot of impact, but his ending was a very bitter end. His ending was a very, very bitter end. First of all, he died early, and not his early death was what was bitter, but the early death, many claim that his death or his early death was due to his false doctrinal messages and teaching that he started bringing, and then the whole lot of events that he started creating or started because of his errors, that God had to save the flesh. God had to kill the flesh so that he could save the soul and the spirit. So we understand there's a text in the Bible that talks about that, I think in 1 Corinthians, where God kills the flesh to save the soul and the spirit. So because of that kind of thing, God had to, because of your errors that were coming in, that's what many people claim. So he died on his way to Christmas, a motor accident. So it's a shocking thing for a prophet that can see the future, tell the past, to die in that such experience. But that's why he died. And then even while he died, on the accident, at the accident, as he died, his son immediately came to him, and he was still alive, breathing. According to his son witness, he was alive, breathing, and while he was breathing, his wife was dead beside him. He just told his son to place his hand on his wife, and as he placed his hand on his wife, he prayed short prayer, not necessarily short prayer or short declaration, and his wife jacked back to life, but himself died. So that was such a tragic ending. For him. The whole reason was, or the whole thing that you say, is that a lot of criticism comes. So I'll just be explaining some of his doctrinal messages. So we have to understand that William Branham himself was not really a good Bible study teacher. He was more the prophet, the healing, come here, heal. So he wasn't really a good Bible teacher. But then, due to some dispute with Gordon Lindsay and F.F. Bosworth and a few others, they left, or they separated. And with that fact, William Branham had to do the preaching majorly, and also doing the healing. So because of that, maybe his position or his disposition towards the word of God or towards some things were a bit false, and a lot of them began correcting him. A lot of them began talking. Kenneth Hagin sent warnings, Oral Roberts, few others sent warnings and teachings to him. So I will just give some of his doctrinal position on things. So the first one was the serpent seed doctrine. The serpent seed doctrine that we say where the disobedience that Eve had was not just eating of fruit, but there was an intercourse between her and the serpent. So that's one. Then the next thing was his claim. He claimed to be the Elijah. He came to be the Elijah that is sent before the second coming of the Lord. And then he claimed to be the seventh angel. That is in Revelation 10 verse 7. In Revelation 10 verse 7. So, serious news. And then there were a few failed prophecy and failed predictions that came. Then a few things about even Jesus and every other thing. So all those teachings and errors he was bringing in. So a man who had done great things started bringing in errors, started forcing himself and every other thing, and there was a whole lot of sad ending with him. But then, in as much as all these things happened, you cannot deny God's grace upon that man. We cannot deny the wonder that God brought in his life, the wonder that we cannot deny the impact God brought through his hand. We can't deny the testimonies, the miracles. We can't deny the testimonies, the miracles. So yes, his ending might not be pleasant, or the disposition towards his ending life might not be pleasant, but he was used by God so mightily. And today, if you ask where is he, I would certainly say he's now with God. He's now with God, and there is a reward for his labor here on earth. So we thank God for William Branham. We thank God for his works. We thank God for all what God did with him, and we pray that as God bring a new dispensation, and God bring his prophets to our generation, that we learn from it. We do not follow the footsteps, and we understand that the end of a thing is better than the beginning, and we stay meek towards God. We stay meek to have people that we learn from. So that was also one critical mistake when William Branham, at the later ending of his life, he separated 1963. That was when he started, from 1963 to 1965. That was when he started going into some of this doctrinal messages, and this was due to maybe dispute. He really did not really have any father or people he called peers. He saw himself as the pinnacle of pinnacle, and but we just pray that in our generation we will not repeat history. We will not repeat the negative part of history, but we'll bring God to our generation in new dimension. And for everyone that is seeking for a sign and a wonder, that God will not just wrought his wonders in your life, but he will wrought it through your life. And just as he did with the fathers of old, from the sick bed to healing the sick, to healing the crutches, so will be our testimonies, from financial challenges to redeeming people redeeming or bringing people into financial prosperity. So will be our testimonies, from challenges of life to setting free the captives. So will be our testimonies. Have a nice day. So thank you for listening. So next week we'll be talking about Mouse Monroe. So perhaps if we don't talk about Mouse Monroe, we'll talk about Mouse Monroe. Let me not bring you to our upper next week topic, which will be interesting. So we'll talk about Mouse Monroe, similar to William Branham, had a short life. So have a nice day.